It's late. You're standing at the kitchen window, and there it is again, your coworker's brand new Tahoe sitting on his driveway. Same company, same title, roughly the same paycheck, and yet, here's the uncomfortable truth nobody posts about. Most of them aren't rich. They're just very good at looking like it. Before we pull back the curtain, if you've ever done the math on someone else's life and felt behind, subscribe, because this one's for you. Now let me show you what's really going on. Meet Mark, 34 years old, software engineer, just got a raise he was genuinely proud of, and yet every Sunday night he opens his banking app, stares at the number, and quietly asks himself, where does it all go? That's not the part that bothers him most, though. What bothers him is his neighbor, Ryan. Same company, same salary band, but last spring it was a week in Tulum on Instagram. This fall, a brand new kitchen. And now that Tahoe, sitting on the driveway like it belongs in a showroom. Mark did the math, more than once, and it never adds up. So what is Ryan actually doing? The answer isn't that he earns more. The answer is that he's living a borrowed lifestyle rented by the month, financed by the payment, and held together by the quiet assumption that nothing will ever go wrong. To understand how Mark's neighbor pulls it off, you have to see the machine underneath, and it runs on 3 quiet engines. The first engine is the car, and this one is everywhere. Nobody walks into a dealership and asks, "Can I afford a $65,000 truck?" That question feels too big, too real. So instead, the question becomes, can I handle $700 a month? And with that one small shift from the total price to the monthly payment, a $65,000 F-150 stops being a purchase and becomes a subscription, a monthly fee for an image you will never actually own. At the end of the lease, you hand back the keys. Nothing to show for it, and most people sign right back up for the next one because the payment felt manageable, because the truck looked right, because no one in the showroom ever brought up the full picture. The second engine is quieter and faster. It's called Buy Now, Pay Later, Klarna, Affirm, Afterpay. What started as a way to split a big appliance into 4 easy payments has become the default way millions of Americans shop for everything. Clothes, shoes, groceries, a dinner out on a Tuesday, split into 4, spread it out. Each payment tiny, almost invisible. But here's what actually happens. Every time you split a purchase, you are spending next month's money today. Do it across 4 or 5 apps simultaneously, which most people do, and your next paycheck is already spoken for before it ever lands in your account. You're not spreading the cost. You're borrowing against your own future. Again and again, in increments small enough to feel harmless. The third engine is the most dangerous because it wears the disguise of smart financial thinking. It's the HELOC, the home equity line of credit. The house goes up in value, so you tap into that equity. Pull out $40,000, do the kitchen, take the trip, buy the things. And on the surface, it feels logical. The house is worth more, so why not use it? Here's why not. A kitchen remodel loses value the moment it's finished. A vacation is gone the moment you land back home. You have taken real, growing equity, a genuine asset, and converted it into things that depreciate immediately. You feel wealthier because the house went up, but underneath, you've quietly borrowed against your own future to buy things that are already worth less than you paid. Each of these 3 engines, the lease, the BNPL, the HELOC, feels reasonable in isolation. A manageable monthly, a small split payment, a smart use of equity. None of them feels reckless. That is precisely what makes them so effective. Each engine feels harmless on its own, but stack them together and something fragile is hiding underneath. Something one ordinary Tuesday can break. Consequences. Here's the part nobody talks about. All of it. The truck, the kitchen, the Tulum photos is sitting on a foundation of almost nothing. Studies and surveys over the years have consistently shown that a significant portion of Americans would struggle to cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing or selling something. Not $4,000, $400. And yet from the outside, these same households look completely fine. More than fine, actually. They look like they're thriving. So picture this. It's July. The AC unit in Ryan's house stops working on a Wednesday afternoon. Not a dramatic failure, just a quiet stop. The repair estimate comes in at $3,800. Not catastrophic by any measure. A completely ordinary, completely predictable kind of expense that homeowners face all the time. But there is no buffer. The checking account has enough to cover the next round of monthly payments. The emergency fund either doesn't exist or was quietly spent months ago on something that felt urgent at the time. So Ryan puts it on a credit card that's already carrying a balance at somewhere around 22% interest, and the monthly minimum goes up, and the whole structure quietly gets a little heavier. That is the moment the performance gets expensive in a way the audience never sees. And here's a thing I want to be clear about. This is not a story about bad people making stupid choices. Ryan is not reckless. Mark's neighbor is not irresponsible. They are normal people who got pulled into a system that was specifically designed to make all of this feel reasonable, monthly payment by monthly payment. Split installment by split installment until one ordinary Wednesday reveals just how thin the margin actually is. The fragility was always there. It just didn't show until something broke. So the real question isn't how do they afford it? It's this. What is that borrowed life actually costing them? And the number is bigger than anyone tells you. Let's talk about the real cost, not the monthly payments, the actual cost. Say someone is spending around $780 a month maintaining the look, the lease, the minimum card payments, the split installments stacked across 3 apps. That number might feel familiar to you. It might even feel low. But let's just sit with it for a moment. $780 a month. Every month. For 10 years. That is the price of the performance. Now here's where most people stop the math. They calculate what they spent, feel bad about it, and move on. But there is a second half to this equation that almost nobody talks about, and it is the part that actually matters. Because you did not just spend $780 a month. You also gave up what that $780 could have become. If instead of feeding the image, you invested that same amount in something boring and diversified, earning a historically average return in the range of 7% per year over 10 years, that $780 a month becomes something in the range of $130,000 to $135,000. Not because you did anything clever, just because you let time do its job. I want to be clear, this is just an illustrative example to help you understand the power of long-term compounding. Your actual results will depend on your income, expenses, returns, and the specific investment choices you make. But here's the insight that most videos skip entirely. The damage is not just the money you spent. The damage is which 10 years you spent it in. A 32-year-old who delays investing for 10 years does not simply lose 10 years of growth. They lose the tail end of the compounding curve, and that tail end is where almost everything happens. In the early years, compounding is slow, almost invisible. But by year 25, year 30, the curve turns almost vertical. The money starts growing faster than you can mentally track. That is the part you are giving up. Not the slow beginning, the steep, dramatic finish. Every year you spend performing wealth instead of building it, you are cutting off a piece of the end, the richest, most powerful piece of the entire journey. Now, let me give you something more practical. Because numbers on a chart only go so far. I want to give you what I call the silent rich test. 4 quiet signals that separate people who are actually building wealth from people who are expertly performing it. The first signal, how they handle the credit card bill. The person building real wealth pays the full balance every single month without exception. The person performing wealth pays the minimum and lets the interest run quietly in the background, compounding against them. The second signal, the car in the driveway. Real wealth often drives something paid off and a few years old. It does not need to signal status. The performed version drives something new, leased, and returned every 3 years with nothing to show for it. The third signal, what happens when something breaks. The person with a real financial foundation has a funded emergency account. Not exciting, not growing fast, just sitting there, waiting. Quietly. Patiently. The person with the borrowed lifestyle has the next paycheck. And the paycheck after that. And a credit card if it comes to that. The fourth signal, and this is the quiet one, what they own versus what they owe on. Real wealth is measured in assets minus liabilities, what you actually own free and clear. The performed version is measured in monthly payments you can currently handle. Those are not the same thing. Not even close. Real wealth is almost invisible. It does not post. It does not need an audience. It does not have a highlight reel because it does not need one. The security it provides is entirely internal, and that is exactly what makes it so easy to overlook from the outside. Once Mark saw the test, he couldn't unsee it. And what he did next was smaller than you'd think, but it changed how he sleeps at night. Mark didn't quit his lease overnight. He didn't overhaul his entire financial life in a weekend. That's not how this actually works for most people, and pretending otherwise wouldn't be honest. What he did was smaller than that. A lot smaller. He looked at his Affirm account and found a payment plan he had genuinely forgotten about, something he bought 4 months ago that barely crossed his mind anymore. He canceled it. Then he looked at his subscriptions and found one he hadn't used in 2 months. Gone. 15 minutes of quiet, unglamorous work. And then he did the one thing that changed everything else. He opened a separate savings account, not his main checking, not the one connected to his card, and he moved $500 into it. Just $500. He labeled it emergency fund, and he did not touch it. That was it. No dramatic moment, no spreadsheet overhaul, no total lifestyle reinvention. But that Friday night, he slept better than he had in months. Not because $500 solves everything, it doesn't, but because for the first time in a long time, he had done something that was entirely for his future self instead of his current image. That feeling small as it was created enough momentum for the next step. And the step after that. This is how it actually starts. Not with a windfall, not with a perfect plan. Just one decision that points you in a slightly different direction, repeated, quietly, over time. You don't need to start rich, you just need to start. And if you're watching this, I promise you, you are not too late. Mark didn't get richer that month. He got freer. And that difference is the whole point. A few weeks later, Mark stood at that same kitchen window. The Tahoe was still there, still spotless, still impressive. And for the first time, he felt nothing, just a quiet kind of calm. Because every dollar you spend looking rich is a dollar that can never grow into being free. Choose the freedom. It's quieter, but unlike everything on that driveway, it's actually yours. If Mark's first $500 story hit home, tell me in the comments what's the one subscription or payment you'd cancel first. And subscribe. Next week we break down exactly how big an emergency fund really needs to be.